What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Great Men with Shane Sams. I'm your host, Shane Sams, and I've got an old friend on today. His name is Chandler Bolt. Chandler is a college dropout. He's like me. He was a C student in English, and he's also was a kid growing up with ADHD who somehow built one of the most influential publishing companies in the world. Forbes 30 under 30, thousands of books published, one mission to prove that your story is worth telling. Chandler Bolt, you're a great man. Welcome to the podcast.
Shane, thanks for having me. I've been called a
Dude,
lot
I'm glad.
worse.
Dude, hey man, no man, hey, listen, I'm only gonna call you good things. We're here to birds of a feather. You know what I'm saying? Let's do it, baby. I got a question for you that I don't think I knew this about you, but when we were doing, the show prep for this, you've been really open about having ADHD your whole life, right? And I just got diagnosed, man. I when I was a kid, I got diagnosed, but my it was the 80s and there was a stigma to it. My parents didn't want it on my record, so I got like no treatment. No, I've been raw dogging life for 48 years, bro. And then I think it was about 6 months ago we kind of knew it. I went through the process, and when I got diagnosed, man, it was a crazy amount of emotions I processed. Like what has it been like in your adult life, especially like having ADHD?
I think I always knew that I had it. That's the funny thing. Everybody else knows you have it before you do.
That is the truth,
and
dude.
and then but then everybody tries to overprescribe it. So I think it was a huge blessing that I grew up with ADHD, and my mom would show up to school every day and they'd say Chandler's talking too much, and he did this today, and he did this today, and he did this today. And then finally one day my mom's just snapped on my principal, and she said, "Do you do anything good today?" It's like every
Oh
day
my
I show up and
gosh.
you tell me how bad my kid is, and you're supposed to give him three positives to one negative, and all I hear is negative. And so I think I always knew that I had ADHD, but then when I got to college, I especially realized, hey, this is not normal, and could really use something to help me focus and write some papers and do whatever. So finally went to the doctor, got officially prescribed, got on Adderall. I was on Adderall for multiple years, and it was really helpful. And I've got maybe a controversial take on it that's I think just about everyone should go on Adderall or something similar at some point in their life,
Totally.
but you shouldn't be on it
Yeah.
forever, and you should only
Right.
be on it for a temporary time. And so I was on it. It was really helpful. It retrained my brain of what's possible. And then now I haven't been on it for over a decade. And
Wow.
because it kills your creativity. But I think ADHD is a superpower. You think outside the box, you're energetic, you're creative. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, man. I'm the same way. Like I look back at like, me, you, some of our friends, the things we've built. Like I look at a lot of these guys and they're ADHD. I mean, I don't think you can do certain things in life where there's the really creative stuff or like, when I'm speaking at an event and there's 5,000 people there and you're backstage with 200 people, you need to be ADHD to even be able to survive like a thing like that. But the Adderall thing was interesting. I was at a buddy's house one day and he had an Adderall prescription. I was like, bro, let me take one of them. I've always wanted to see what that would do to me. And I'm an experimental guy. I'll just jump in it. I'll try anything twice. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, dude, so my buddy gives me an Adderall, and I'm sitting on his back porch with Jocelyn. And I don't. The only way I can explain it is it's like all of a sudden my peripheral vision disappeared and everything focused. And I remember looking down at this like leaf on a tree, and I could just totally and nothing. All the noise in my head stopped. Everything. And dude, I started crying, and I looked over at Jocelyn, and I was like, is this what your brain feels like all the time? Like you don't have 15 voices in your head and 75 future possibilities that you're wondering
Mm.
if can come true? And she was like, yeah, it's like really, so it was super interesting. And the process is hard to get it. You got to go through like a psychiatrist and all this other stuff. But the psychiatrist looked at me, bro, and said, you might be the most ADHD person I've ever worked with. And coming from a shrink, I think that's a compliment in my mind. But I agree with you. I think it is a tool. It is something that I do the fast action, fast release, and I use it like a scalpel, right? Like right now I'm talking to you, I'm not gonna take Adderall because this is a fun conversation. But if I'm doing some other kind of work, I use it there. But it is a superpower, man. Like people don't understand how much you can do. I hate that it's called a disorder. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, it's a complete superpower. And what's interesting about that, it's interesting because I think it's overprescribed. And
Totally.
so I actually think kids should not be on Adderall. I
Mm,
think it is incredibly harmful, but it's a limitless pill. And so
yeah,
it's like that movie where they take the drug and then your brain starts going nuts. But it's also it's a molecule away from amphetamine or from
totally,
meth.
bro.
It's an
Yeah,
amphetamine, and it is a molecule away from being meth. So it flushes the dopamine in your brain, which is not good. There's no long-term studies on that. And so that's why I ultimately decided to get off of it. But what's interesting is you talk about, I kind of use it similarly, but doctors would say don't do that because it gives you mood swings. And so
really.
it's
I've not had
because
those yet, actually.
maybe it's not for everyone, but I know for me, I'd take it during the week and then I'd go off of it during the weekend because I didn't need it. And they said, don't do that because you kind of it's flushing dopamine and then not, and then so it kind of makes your mood go up and down. For me, it made me really thirsty all the time, and it
Mm,
turned me into a productive robot. That's what I
yeah,
didn't like
totally.
about it. And so I was at college, so I'd see someone on campus, and I would walk the other way, hoping that they didn't see me because I it would interrupt. It would have wasted 5 minutes of my day that I couldn't be productive.
Nice, man. Yeah,
And
totally,
so I
dude.
just realized, hey, I got to stop doing this. I'm getting away from who I am, and I want to take the learnings, but then not have this be a long term part of my lifestyle.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the protocols have changed a lot because that was one of the things they did tell me to do now. I think they they realized that that was terrible advice, I think, and they
Mm.
told me like to take it when you need it if you're doing certain focus things, but like, if you want to step into that, you got to use it. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can't hide from personal development, mental health as an entrepreneur. Like being a CEO, being a business owner, building movements, building brands, like really, really doing it at the level that you do it at, that we all do it at. Dude, you've got to reposition things. I love how you call ADHD like a superpower. Like everyone else is putting that bucket into a problem. And the more I allow my business and my life to really be a mirror of like the things I need to work on, I keep finding new superpowers. Like ADHD, I consider it a superpower too. It's something that I love. I love that about me. I never want to be not Shane Sams, right? But I realized recently, I just learned this probably about 6 months ago, a new superpower, and that was the ability to grieve, the ability to really let go, really look at things like old identities, people in your life, like these things that happen to us. I had always avoided grief. I was probably, I consider myself preposterously optimistic, but I think I was borderline toxic positive, like because I was just trying to basically just bury everything and not deal with it. Right. And then I had a couple experiences in my life where grief hit. And a story that has stuck with me, dude, ever since I met you, you came out on a retreat with us one time. We were out on a houseboat, sitting around the fire, hanging out. And you shared a story of a friend of yours that died. And it really, really impacted your life. Like what happened? And then how did you grieve that? And then what did you learn about being able to feel that and be able to use it as fuel instead of something that kind of buries you down?
Hmm. I would say I'm not very good at grief, and I typically tend to move past it. But this one hit me harder than just about anything in a really long time. And so the story you're referencing is a friend of mine, Kendall, passing away straight in front of me on a cruise ship on a rewards trip for the company that we were working at. And I had a conversation with his dad a week or so later, and he said, Kendall's my only son. He's the family name. I'm old. I'm not going to have more kids. The only good that can come out of this is if other people's lives are positively impacted by the fact that this happened. And
Mm.
it just hit me. And especially because at the time I felt responsible for his death.
How old were you when that happened?
21,
Oh, wow, man,
maybe.
that's
Yeah, I
hard.
was 21.
Yeah.
And so I felt responsible. So when I heard him say that, I said, oh, I need to make sure that that other people's lives are positively impacted by the fact that this happened.
Mm.
And it just really shifted my perspective. Now I felt like I'm living for two now because the night before he passed away, we had talked about his dreams for the next year, the next few years, his goals and all that. And I realized he's not going to be able to have that. None of those things are going to come to fruition for him. So it's up to me to go be the change. And so that's where I have had this bracelet ever since. It's on one side, it says WWKD, what would Kendall do? It's a reminder. And then on the other side, it says make him proud. Cause I never wanted to forget that. But then
Wow.
I went to work with that as fuel. And Kendall had showed up to one of our random trainings and had written most of a book. That is what really, where I realized that I'm chasing a lot of things in my life that don't matter. Women, money, fame, all this stuff. One of the only things in my life that I'm doing that's actually making a positive impact is helping people publish books. So
Mm,
with the help of his friends, we published his book after he passed away. And it just brought kind of this new life and this new clarity. But that's where I think people, whether watching this, listening to this, when you have grief or when you have something tragic happen in your life, you can use it to fuel you, or it's the saying, you can get bitter, you can get better. You can
mm.
get better because of it, or you can use it as energy and fuel. And it doesn't mean you can't grieve, of course, do that, but then use it to fuel you. And so, I mean, coming full circle now, you've probably heard this, especially from Grant, but mentor of mine, Aaron Stokes, just passed away in a
Yep.
plane crash. And man, that
God, that was
hit me
tragic, dude.
probably so tragic. That hit me. I mean, it's the hardest that any death has hit me since Kendall passed away, probably. And because Aaron was the one who got me into flying, and he was the one who, inspired me to open up an in-person office and just inspired me in so many ways. And to see that life, gosh, he's 47, right? Kendall was 20. But in both cases, you say, hey, that's either behind where I'm at now or it's not too far from where I'm at now. So I am not promised. So
Mm.
what am I going to do with my time, with my life? But then what am I and what can I do to to make those guys proud and kind of live out their legacy?
Yeah, amen to that, dude. That was tragic. That was crazy, man. That plane, and he had, I think he had one of his kids in with him too, or something like that. Maybe his nephew. And
Yeah, he said his son and his nephew. Yeah,
dang, man. How old are you? How old are you now?
32.
Yeah, I'll be 48 on Saturday, and those deaths
So you're
hit me
Aaron's
hard.
age right now.
So I'm 47, man. Yeah, that's why it hit us all so hard because we're all right there circling around that, and it just makes you realize that, like, damn, get off your ass. Like, stop moping, stop, crying about things and get after it. Like you said, like I posted a thing on Substack the other day. 150,000 people died last night. You opened your eyes.
Hmm.
There's no motive. You don't need motivation. That opening your eyelids is literally momentum. And the
Hmm.
motivation comes like after you move, right? And I had a thing
Hmm.
happen. I didn't know how to grieve probably until I was about 46. And I had a crazy situation with my dad where he died in my arms on Christmas morning and I revived him. And
You're
it was just
kidding.
no, no, and it was a nightmare afterwards, which I've not really gone into anywhere publicly, but like the whole month, the next month was chaos, like in our family and everywhere else, and but I did what men do. I tightened up the ship, got everything as stable as I could, and I went back out on the road and started speaking to thousands of people, right? And I kind of look back at that year now and I'm like, oh, did I bury myself in travel? Because I was traveling like every other weekend, all this stuff. And this was 2025. This happened in 2024. And I had just been on a 6 month run. I'd taken off and landed in over 100 flights, just back to back in it, man, out there on the road. And I was in Tucson, Arizona, and I had a dream that night of my dad. I woke up and bro, I couldn't contain it anymore. I just started wailing and like crying in my hotel room. I was crying so hard and it was so uncontrollable that I actually put my clothes on and left the hotel because I was afraid that people next door were going to think somebody was getting murdered. And dude, I walked out into the desert, dude, literally on a path, and I found this like fence or something. I just sat there and I was like, I'm just gonna sit here and cry this out and wait until, because I'm better at feeling my feelings now than I was in the past. And dude, I just I learned how to grieve out there that morning. I was like, dang, I wish someone had told me this earlier to like let it wash over you, let the grief fuel you. Grief is the ultimate like expression of love. Like even in the Jesus story, like we get fixated when people see the Jesus story or they hear it on the crucifixion and the resurrection. But if you look at that, the bulk of that story is when Jesus dies, God grieves. he cries, the earth shakes. The story is like he's rips the veil, right? Only after grief can you really like resurrect and like build something like amazing, you know? And I think your story like really speaks to that, man, in a huge way, because I mean, you use that as fuel to honor your friend and to build something out of yourself and to make it count. And you built this incredible company. And probably your teachers are like my teachers. When they hear what I do, they're like, "You're doing that? This guy? Who is this guy? There's no way that no, you're the different Shane Sam's, different Chandler Bolt." But like you've hit millions and millions in revenue and you've helped people publish thousands of books. Like, like how did you even cast the vision for something like selfpublishing.com? Like where like to even
Mm.
see that? Like, did you have a goal? Were you trying to be like somebody else? Like, was that
Yeah.
something internal? Like, where did that come from, dude?
Yeah, when I want to come back here in a second, maybe ask the question, why do you think men are scared to grieve?
Mm,
But I think to directly answer your question, I think there were a lot of people in my life who were similar to you, which is they said Chandler is either going to be a complete home run or a total bust.
yes.
Like
Homeless
I'm
or home run. There's no in between, dude.
homeless or home run, and it's so funny. I had an instance recently where someone was sharing a story at my wedding, and they said that our econ teacher, he said, Chandler, he's either going to end up in the trailer park or a mansion, and he might do both. And I'd never heard that story. And then
Yeah,
and then
man.
I heard another boss or mentor who, when I was going out on student painters, starting my first business, I was trying to be number one in the company, number one in the country. And I heard after the fact that he said that guy's either going to flame out in 2 weeks or he's going to actually do it. And so I don't know really what the lesson is in there, other than just the people who go achieve big things are the ones crazy and bold enough to do it. And so I
Hmm.
think my brother gave me that boldness because I got the front row seat to watch him do that. And we grew up in the middle of nowhere. He went out and became a Grammy nominated rock and roll star and did 81 shows with Taylor Swift, and he made it. And then he came back and said, hey, if I can do that, you can do whatever you want. And so I think it was
Wow.
both his example, but then also transparently just not wanting to be a loser.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Because when you got a brother that's so, he's a decade older than me and goes and be so successful in a small town, you're like, well, okay, I can't be the unsuccessful little brother. And I had
Yeah, totally, man.
great parents that just poured into me and he poured into me. And then, so that kind of unbridled ambition and confidence mixed with, some good fundamentals and just getting after it, I think has
Yeah.
compounded over time.
You've also done a great job. I find this is the most common thing because I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs and I talk to a lot of people out on the road. And it really is true, though. It's the people you look up to and surround yourself with. Like, you didn't try to be like your brother and go be a rock star. That's his dream. That's his
Mm-hmm.
vision. That's his life. But like putting yourself in the right place to be in the right place at the right time is probably the most undervalued skill, I think, from successful entrepreneurs. Like, it's the ability to go with no clue, like go to the conference, go to the event, go to the retreat, go if you know no one. And if you don't have that brother to look up to, if you don't have that cousin that made it or the uncle that somehow, did his thing, you have to go find those people. And I'm not saying mentors necessarily, not even coaches. Coaches are great when you get in with them. We all need those. But just running with dudes who are doing something, man. And it inspires you. Even their failures like inspire me. Just watching them get back up again. You know what I'm saying? And I think I've seen that with you. I've seen that with all my friends. And people always ask me, what's the secret sauce, dude? Like it's being around people that make you better and make you want to be better. I did not hang out with those people in high school, and they
Yeah.
made me worse. But like
Mm-hmm.
college, tried to get some new ones. Ooh, no, same thing, repeated the pattern. But once I got into my professional life, I was like, I have to be around great people. Like greatness is contagious. And if you're not close enough to catch the bug, you're not ever going to get it, you know?
Yeah. If I think back on my childhood in sports, people with the scouting report on me, they would say, Chandler, he's not the most athletic, he's not the most talented, he's not the best coached, but he'll outwork everybody else. And I
Hmm.
think if you were to say that same kind of scouting report for the business world, they would say, oh yeah, he didn't even, he's a college dropout. He's not smart or, crazy talented, but what he is good at is finding the people who know what he needs to know and then getting as close to them as possible and then peppering them with questions. And so
Yes,
that's
sir.
always been my superpower, is just saying, hey, who knows what I need to know? And I think it was born out of deep insecurity of dropping out of college and feeling like I never got to the business classes. So I better find out people who can learn this stuff, because if I don't learn this, I'm not going to be successful. But then just constantly throughout my career, sometimes that was in the form of books saying, here's a big problem I'm facing. Okay, let's find a $15 mentor, AKA a book that is
Mm.
on from the smartest person on this subject. And then let me go read that book and just repeat that. Or let me volunteer at conferences, let me get in the room, but I'm not just showing up. When I show up, I got some questions.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man.
And even
If I catch you at a lunch table, baby, we gonna talk. You know what I mean?
exactly. And I
Yeah,
got them
dude.
ready, and I know exactly what you're good at, and I know exactly what I want to learn from you. And in any interaction, I mean, I do this thing with Dabo Sweeney every year in Clemson, and we'll have like a 24 hours with the team, and we'll have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and when we get at that dinner, he was joking this last year. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're the guy with some questions."
Heck
He's
yeah,
like, "You're
bro.
coming with questions," and I said, "I know, and you better
And he
be
probably
ready
loves it, to
tonight."
be honest with you, because Dabo's going to
Oh
pour into anybody
yeah,
around him, man. He loves that stuff. Most dudes do. Like I was backstage in an event, and I was eating lunch with Ed Milet and Auntie Ann from Auntie Ann's Pretzels, and I brought my daughter with me. And I mean, that's freaking Ed Milet and Auntie Anne, you know what I'm saying? And my daughter is sitting there, and she's very open. Like she just starts asking questions and hanging out and talking. They loved it, man. This is a 14-year-old kid that they know me, but they don't know her. But like they loved like pouring into her. People want to help you, right? They just want to help you if you'll ask. And I think that goes back to two things. Men are kind of conditioned to shut up and grin and bear it and not ask. So that there is an insecurity there of I'm going to look dumb. These people are going to think I'm useless. Like what's
it's
happening?
ego.
So it's ego, man. You got to bust through your ego and get over that. But it kind of goes back to that question you asked a minute ago, like why are men afraid to look dumb? Why are they afraid to grieve, right? And it's because it's freaking uncomfortable. Like there's so much discomfort in that,
It's
man, to
vulnerable.
not be able to just accept it. Yeah. How do you get past that insecurity when you're talking to like a guy like Dabo Sweeney or a guy like Ed Milet or whoever it is we somehow end up in the room with? Like how do you push past that? Like is it just a hunger for curiosity? Is it just a I'm not going to let this do it? Is it just I've done it so many times now it's not a big deal? Like how did you initially push through those to get those reps?
I think it's not afraid to be in the. It's not afraid to be. It's being unafraid to be the dumbest person in the room. And that's to
Mm,
your point with that story that you just shared. A 14-year-old is learning more than you are, or getting into better conversations with successful people than most people are, because they're not afraid to have childlike curiosity. And so I
mm,
think it was born from a place of I am the dumbest person in the room constantly, and I dropped out of
yeah.
school and whatever else. So hey, I'm not afraid because I'm not a threat. And I'm from you probably deal with this. Hey, I'm from the South. I got a little Southern accent, so naturally I'm not threatening to people. They automatically kind of think I'm a little dumber, and so
Yep.
I can just ask. And there's but
Totally.
then what I've had to fight is as I've gotten more successful, I've noticed my own ego creeping in, and
Oh, it comes, man.
sometimes it robs me of the benefit of that. So I've just had to kind of recheck that and just say, hey, every man I meet is superior to me in some way, and in that I learn of him. And so it's my job to show up at those tables and say, oh, what's that mean? And even just it shows up in the little ways, right? Where they're explaining something and they use a word that you don't know, but you're afraid to ask them what the word means. I'm
Mm,
like, oh, what's that? What's that? Tell me about, like, and it's interesting because you get on the other side of that and you find that it was actually more helpful for them than it was you, and they loved it even more than you did. I'll never forget,
Totally.
we did something similar at Clemson with Brent Venables, head coach of Oklahoma now. And he was supposed to spend 2 hours with us, tour us around the facilities. And then we're thinking, all right, cool, we'll do our thing. We're probably last on his list. We're going to get booted pretty quick. We end up 4.5 hours later, maybe even longer than that, still talking. And finally to the
Yeah.
point where I'm like, hey man, like you probably got stuff to go do. Like I'll do this all day. And what I realized, he said, Chandler, no, nobody asked me about this stuff. And I
Oh,
love
wow.
talking about this stuff. And it's because I had a list of questions and I'm asking him about culture. I'm asking about recruiting. I'm asking about all the stuff that he never gets asked about, but he actually loves talking about, because everybody's just asking him about, football and the latest recruiting class and what's happening over here. And I asked him about these other things. So I think the lesson in that is find the thing that you're curious about, that someone loves to talk about, that maybe they don't often get asked, and it'll lead to even deeper, more meaningful conversations for them and for you both.
Totally, man. I feel that, dude. Like I had kind of that moment in like, I don't know, maybe about early 2023, because the company was the biggest it had ever been. We're printing money out on the road, and doing seminars and stuff like that. Like, and I've got a team of 12 full-time people. I've got a team of 20 salespeople I'm rotating out on the road. I've got, I'm on these stages where you do photo ops and all this bull crap, ego stuff, right? And then like, but there's this weird thing where like everybody's coming to you, everybody's coming to you, everybody's coming to you, and you're not going to anybody. And I don't know if that's just a capacity thing or
Mm,
if it's like I'm the guy, which is probably a little bit of both. You know what I'm saying? I don't have time to go do this. Everything's working. I don't want to break it. And then also you become this person where, people constantly, and I got bitter about it a little bit, dude. And I kind of looked the back half of 23, I shut a bunch of stuff down. I just turned some things off, closed some programs. I was just like, I don't want anyone to be able to ask me anything. And
mm,
I don't know what I would even ask anybody else. And I was in this like I went through this huge like 6 month identity crisis, dude, where I just hit a freaking like wall. But then actually just last week I spoke at Austin Nestle and Tom Sylvester's 2X Mastermind. You know Austin?
yeah.
Yeah, you know Austin really good, huh? He's a good dude.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah, man, I love that dude, man. So Tom calls me. He's like, "Hey, we're gonna be close enough for you to drive in. You want to come talk for an hour?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, man! I've been to their masterminds before. They're always fun." And I didn't do this the last time I went, but like I just stayed all day, right? And I got into their hot seats, right? And everyone, I was so happy. No, I didn't. There was no charge for this. This is just my buddy. I'm just hanging out and speaking. And I just all these questions, and we were just knocking down dominoes, man. And it was like, but it was funny because I hadn't done that in a while. I've not really, really been in a mastermind level where I'm coaching and teaching and probably 6 to 8 months. And every time I answered someone's question, it made me learn something I needed to do right now in my business. Like something I was
Mm,
forgetting, something I wasn't thinking about. Some like my vision and my business and everything got so much better. And if you don't ask those questions, you're robbing people of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's good for you and it's good for them, and it makes it happen. Have you had any moments like that? Like self-publishing, dude, it grew. Like I remember where you were just ramping this thing up, dude. You know what I'm saying? Planning webinars down in the bottom of the boat and stuff. And like, like
yeah,
it was like we
yeah.
just like has it been pretty straight up, not just from a financial standpoint, but like from an identity standpoint? Or have there been any big moments with something this successful where you've gotten to a point where you're like wanting to change it, but you feel like you can't and you're kind of trapped in it? Or is it just kind of been this like open, expansive thing still like in your life? Has anything shifted as you've built something that's so
Big
amazing?
time. Big time. I
Mm,
would say two things. One, to your point, I think what I've been thinking about and reflecting on later is, have you gotten so successful that you stopped becoming a student?
mm,
And that really, I just got my pilot's license on this past Saturday, and I worked at it for 15 months. It was hundreds of hours. And I realized in that process that I've stopped being a student. Now, I wouldn't say that I
Mm,
was. I would say, oh, yeah, I'm a student. I learn from everybody, all this stuff. But we're a decade in, and you start getting in your head, you start thinking that you got stuff figured out, and you stop looking for areas to learn. And I think that's what getting my pilot's license taught me is be a student. But it also taught me, to your point, on the flip side of what is it like to be a student? And what are the
yeah.
thoughts and feelings and insecurities that you have? Oh, hold up. How am I showing up as that for my people, for my employees, for our authors? I'm probably not showing up the way that I would like someone else to show up. And I realized that I'm too hard
Wow.
on people. And I noticed when my instructor was doing that when we were in the plane, it was helpful to a point, but then it kind of made me shut down or lose my confidence or get frazzled and all that stuff. And then when I was reflecting on the flight, it's like, well, I'm doing that in the business world.
Well, yeah, it's a mirror, man. The
and
whole universe is a mirror, dude. It's just gonna reflect right back whatever you're putting out every single time.
and so I think I've that's what I've been reflecting on lately is how do I get back to being more of a student? But then to answer your question on the identity crisis, I think my identity has been snatched up multiple times. I mean, from when there's many distinct moments, but one is when my business partner tried to kick me out of the business. I went multiple six figures in debt, borrowed from my parents' retirement. I thought I was going to lose the business before I bought
Wow.
him out, and I realized, who am I if I'm not this business?
Yes,
Because
sir.
when I would make goals, it would be all cumulative. Oh, selfpublishing.com goals and Chandler Bolt's goals. What's the difference? I had
Mm,
someone say, "Oh yeah, those are different though, right?" So now when I make my goals for the year, it's what are my personal goals and what are the business goals. But even still,
that's
I think
good.
my identity is too intertwined. So that's a big lesson. And then I think a bigger one maybe that I've been sitting with for a couple years now is how do you operate once you've quote unquote made it? And I think realizing that when early on I had nothing to lose. And so I had more fun and I played with nothing to lose. But then you make it, and your butt cheeks clench and you white knuckle this thing, you start having less fun and you start playing not to lose
Yeah,
because
man.
you think, oh, I worked my whole life to get to the point to where I dreamed about and I'm here now. Now I don't want to lose it. And so you start playing not defense versus playing offense. And that's where I've been kind of trying to rewire my brain over the last 6, 12, 18 months, maybe longer than that, is, hey, I got to get back to having fun.
Yes, sir.
Way in the
Yeah, man.
journey. I got to get back to taking risks. I got my mantra for the year is no small plans. Like I'm going to make some big plays and I'm going to
Let's go,
put
baby.
some
Yeah,
money on the line and I got to get back to having fun because if not, might as well just close down the business or sell it to somebody else and go find something else that's going to make me happy.
yeah, man. I got a buddy named Joe, and he runs it. He's one of the greatest
Love
entrepreneurs I've ever
Joe.
met. Yeah,
Well,
this
I
is
do.
a different Joe.
I'm thinking of two Joes,
There's a
but I
lot of
like both
Joes.
of them.
Yeah, man.
I think I'm thinking of both the ones you're
You
thinking
know
of,
the
and I
one we're
like both
talking
of them.
about. Yes. And he said something to me once that was really interesting. He said there was a guy that we were trying to work with, and he said something to the effect of, "I don't want to work with that guy." But like, he's kind of like his story was kind of like my story or your story. Like we built something, it was crazy, it got really big and like it's awesome. Oh yeah, man, they built something good. And I was like, that guy's well, this is really cool. It fits right in. And he's like, nah, that dude's never lost everything. And I don't like to partner with people who haven't lost something. And like yeah, yeah, no, seriously, he's like, you don't know how that guy's going to respond. Like identities change, your goals change, you grow up, you everything changes over time. Every 5 years, you're a different human being. And he was just like, I don't know how he's going to respond to that. I don't know if he's going to rise up and take risks again. I don't know if he's going to do that. So let's go with somebody else who's been beat up a little bit. And that really stuck with me. It led to me shutting down a couple companies. Like we flip lifestyles, the community closes. It's over. And
Mm.
that's my decision. I just like, you know what, yeah, I'll tell you what happened. I wrote my book. I self-published my book. I wrote my book. I got the copy in my hand, Chandler. And when I picked that book up out of that box, I was like, oh, this identity doesn't exist anymore. This human being that did all of this was an old version of Shane Sands. It's still in me. It's the foundation is part of it. But I knew in that moment that I was in an identity shift. And it took me a while to get, the same thing, man, like a year to even be able to wrap my head around that because, not only am I the Shane Sams I created in my podcast and my whatever, and then I'm also the Shane Sams that's been on stage in front of hundreds of thousands of people for 5 straight years. And like the hard thing with identity to me is I know I've changed. I know who I want to authentically be, but all those people out there only knew me from when they knew me, right? And that is scary as hell, dude. When you start going out and you start talking about a few different things, your interests shift. I'm not the online membership guy anymore. Everybody asks me all about the memberships, and I'm like, I'm not that guy anymore. But I got a book. You can go read it. You can go talk to that guy
Mm,
with this. And that's been the hard part for me, identity. Do you find that too? Because everybody knows you as the self-publishing guy. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like how do you wrestle with that as a man that you are 1,000 different characters and 1,000 different stories, but you're trying to write your own?
I think I'm wrestling with that a little bit right now in the sense that I'm going out and doing a bunch of podcasts for the first time in a long time.
Mm,
And I'm I'm wanting to talk about scaling businesses because that's just
mm,
that's fun. That's what I've always loved. It's interesting. I've got a YouTube channel on it. That was just always a fun little side thing. It's not really even a business, but it's just fun for me. And I'm operationally minded, and I just like that stuff. And so I'm going on to these podcasts, but I'm realizing that I have to explicitly communicate that ahead of time. Otherwise, you
mm.
just ask me about book stuff. And which, in their defense, for years I've said I'm not coming if I can't talk about book stuff. If it's not
Heck
about
yeah.
books, I don't want to talk about it because that doesn't it's not going to help the business. So it might be
A
fun,
prison of
but it's
your own
not
making, brother. It's a prison of your own
exactly
making.
exactly. But now I'm getting to talk about business stuff and it's fun. But I I mean I think my mantra for a long time has kind of been call me whatever you want as long as you call me. So if you want to call me
Hmm.
the book guy, if you want to call me the scaling guy, if you want to call me the idiot from South Carolina, as long as you're calling, I don't much care.
Yeah,
But
man.
to your point, I mean, you start to get kind of locked into some of that stuff, and even instead of who am I if I'm not this business becomes who am I if I'm not this industry, or can I
Yeah.
reinvent myself? Was this a fluke? And I'm not full blown, crisis mode or anything like, hey, I got to get out of this business. It's just starting to think, okay, interesting. What are some other things that I might want to talk about that I've just buried so far down in my backlog of life experiences and stories that I could share that it's been fun kind of pulling on some of those threads to say, oh, yeah, there's a lot more experience and stories here that are outside of just book stuff.
Yeah, there's way more to Chandler Bolt. I can tell everybody out there. Like there's way more. But you set me up perfect. My next question was about scaling businesses, man. So this is pretty.
Let's
It's like
talk.
it's like you set me up perfect, dude, right there. You know a lot about scale, and we've scaled big. Like I've been really down that rabbit hole of like, I think 2022 was my year that I had to learn what it meant to scale. I had to learn how to build a team, get a leadership team, delegate, let go, like, invest, like take those risks. And I had a great man in my life was Dan Miller, author of the 48 Days of Work You Love, one of the just a legendary guy. And he told me something one time that I have adopted ever since is that everything in life, no matter what it is, whether it's like Dan got cancer, he said these same three things, right? When I was helping him like grow his membership, the Eagles thing he did. And he was like, it still has these things: challenges, benefits, and what does this make possible? You know what I'm saying? And like I
Mm,
actually apply this to every part of my life. Like I took my daughter to Taylor Swift when it was madness and there was 80,000 people in stadiums. And of course, this was her first concert ever, Chandler. I do not recommend this if you have a child. Do not take your daughter to the biggest thing that's ever happened on the planet, right? And so we go to this thing and she's high as a cat. You know what I'm saying? But on the way home, we were like, "Hey, man, what were the benefits that come to this? What did you love? And then what were the challenges? Like our niece passed out, and there was it was so hot, and all this stuff happened. Like these different things happened throughout the thing. And what's this make possible? And one thing it made possible was, she said, "Dad, I want to go to more concerts with you." So we've been going to concerts and stuff for the past
mm,
couple of years. So it opened that door. And I, as someone who has scaled and downsized and scaled and shut down. I've done this 3 times. I figured out this pattern where I just burn things to the ground when I'm done with them, Chandler. It's probably not healthy. I'm working on it. But like as someone who has scaled, what are the benefits of scale, right? What does scale cost you, right? And then what things get unlocked and become more possible as you scale a business or a brand?
Hmm. The benefits are it creates massive leverage in your life and it can create massive wealth. Where, I've scaled self-publishing.com. We've done 75 million, maybe more like 80 million over the last decade. And
So good, man.
it's created a life that I dreamed about and opportunity and stuff where I can, take my dad to the national championship and have him have these experiences with me that he would have never experienced and has never experienced. It just allows me to bring my friends along for the ride and pay for stuff and do stuff and have these incredible experiences, which is the most important thing in life for me is experiences, not things. So the
Yes, sir.
benefits, leverage, it's wealth, it's scaling beyond yourself. I think the challenge is there's many of them. It's complexity. That is the big one. And so
Yeah.
more people, more problems,
Yeah.
more products or revenue or whatever, more complexity and more complexity, it starts to feed on itself and it starts to eat on itself. And so I think there was a moment where I realized, man, I just feel like a total idiot because we
Mm.
scaled so much and there were always problems, always problems. Somebody's quitting. Somebody we're having a fire. Somebody's having a baby. Some customers pissed off. And then so like you start getting sued for stuff and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I've never got
That's a
sued before. And
me and Grant,
then
we have a say. Grant was the first one in our mastermind to get sued, and I'm like, does that make you a real business owner now? Man, you've really scaled. Good job, dude. Congratulations. That happens, man. As soon as people see the money, they start suing
get
you, dude. It's crazy.
get successful, you get sued. And so
Yes,
then
sir.
but then you start looking at all this stuff. And so I had to do some inventory. I said, man, am I just that much worse than I used to be? But I realized it was the law of large numbers. If you got
Mm.
1,000 customers and you got 10 pissed off customers, okay, well, that's pretty normal. But when you had 100, there was none. And so
Yeah.
it's because the numbers caught up to you. And so that's where the complexity and then it can start to take over your life. And so that's where I think I'm in a season of pruning and saying, okay, we got big and we're kind of flatlining around 8 figures. So what's it going to take to get to 9? And then what's it going to take to have more fun and make this thing simpler in the journey? And so there's a bunch of challenges, but then to your point, what does it make possible? Well, it makes it possible to learn all those lessons in the challenges. It makes
Oh,
it
that's a good word.
possible to build schools, build homes, donate all this money to nonprofits and charities and all this stuff. It makes it possible to participate in the greatest self-development incubator possible, which is leadership and entrepreneurship. That in its darkest moments, it shines a spotlight on all your flaws. But what
Yeah.
that makes possible is you get to learn, you get to grow, you get to become a better version of yourself for the people around you, for your spouse. For me, I don't have kids yet. For my future kids, I'm learning lessons that I know will help them become better humans. And so I think that's what it makes
Dang, that's a
possible.
good word, dude. I never thought. Yeah, it's like the possibility becomes you can't hide from your own bullshit. To be honest with you, you can't. I remember one time, dude. I height of our powers. I pull into my driveway. I get home from the airport. This is so stupid. And I see, like, we had just bought a Cadillac Escalade for Jocelyn. I was driving a Lincoln Navigator, and I also had a Dodge 50, whatever it was, T-Rex, big giant pickup, Bigfoot monster truck. I get home, I pull in, and there's people everywhere. There's like people mowing my yard. My housekeepers are there. My home manager's there. There's some dude bush hogging on the other side. You know what I'm saying? There's a guy on the roof fixing something. This isn't even counting all my online people. That's the home team, not even the away team, right? But then like I'm walking in, and there was a split moment where I was like, this is pretty badass. This is pretty amazing. But then before I put my handle on the door, I was like, I just learned a lesson that I don't think I want this many people around me. Like, I don't know if I want this, but if you don't ever do it, then you
Mm.
can't experience it. You can only dream about it
Mm-hmm.
or think about it. Like, what would that be like? That's why I say I'll try anything twice, because you kind of have to push past that line like to figure out the actual business, the actual service, the actual good you can do like in the world for other people. And that brings me to this last question, man, that I always ask everybody. Man, I, I think back to that houseboat trip. I think that was the first one I went on. Like the way I got on, the way I did, I knew Jeff Rose, and Joe invited me. Maybe it was the second one. I don't know. But like, it's so funny when I look back now. I think about the moments in my life where everything changed. Like when I leveled up in, mental health, physical health, business, whatever it is. I always go back to that retreat every year where it's just me and great men with cigars around a campfire or hanging out on the boat or like Tom's mastermind last week that just going out to eat, going to a cigar bar at night, like whatever. Like how has that helped you navigate all this? Like just the men in your life, like not just your dad, not just the people you grew up with. Those people are great for certain things, but like the people you run with, like that you're with, the guys in your text threads or or going, getting in space with dudes and not working for a while and just talking about life. What role do you think that's played in your success?
It's everything.
Mhm.
It's, are you around people who are challenging you to be better when
Yeah.
you want it and when you don't? And so I think when I think back on, there's that houseboat trip. Every year I do this fly fishing trip with Michael Hyatt. Every year I
Yep.
do this snowboarding trip with Dan Martell. And it's like those are they're quote unquote masterminds, but they're not really. It's doing an epic
No.
experience with great people that you love and respect.
No
And
whiteboards.
oftentimes out in
Get rid of the
nature. Yeah,
whiteboards.
no
That's your
whiteboards.
masterminds. Yeah, man.
But those are the moments where I think back on big realizations, where I think back on just viscerally seeing it. I don't know. I'm a visual learner, and sometimes
Me
when you
too.
just look around the dinner table and you see where people are at, and you see what they're doing, or you see how they operate. Whoa, I get it now. I can go do it. You didn't have to tell me anything. Your
Yeah.
actions spoke, or seeing the way that you do what you do, that spoke. And so, yeah, I mean,
Mm.
I try to build that into my friend group and my community here in Austin, but I also try to build that into my life. Or at least once or twice a year, I'm getting it on a trip like that or in a room like that with people that I really look up to.
Yeah, I've gotten into a rhythm where I like to do it quarterly. I like to, but I have my core group of guys. I'll do that like once or twice a year. And then I like to just like, I jump into other things because I was like, if this is filling me up so good once or twice a year, like what would it do every 3 months to just go to a weekend, get away with some dudes, no plan, no structure. Like you said, a cool experience. I've heard so much about that fly fishing trip. Brian goes on it. Did you go with Brian? You been on it with Brian Harris?
Oh yeah,
When he-
bunch of
Yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I'm not much of a fly fisherman, but every time he comes back from that, I see he's changed. Every time that like I go to the houseboat, I come back changed. Every time I
Mm-hmm.
randomly show up at a ski trip or somebody or whatever it is, you just got to have it in your life, man, and make it happen. I do have a bonus question for you though. How's married life?
That's
That's
great.
another mirror. That's business is a mirror, and just in case you ain't seeing something, here's the other one. How's married life, bro?
it's if business and leadership is the half length mirror, marriage is the full length mirror, and like a 360-degree mirror where you
It's like when
look
you
and
go
you're
in the
like,
dressing room, there's three of them, and you're like, whoa, I never seen myself from that angle before.
it's kind of like when your hairdresser shows you the back of your head, and they always
Yeah.
ask me, "Oh, hey, how does that look?" I'm like, "I don't know. I never see it. I don't know. I like you tell me." And I
That's
also kind of
amazing.
don't care. It's the back of my head. I never see it. So do whatever you
Right.
want back there. But yeah, I think marriage is that it shows you all the flaws and all the spaces you didn't even know. And I'm sure you've experienced this. Married a whole lot longer than I have. Is they start to realize things about you that you don't realize about yourself,
Yes,
which is
100%.
weird because
It's very
my
weird.
wife will say, "Oh yeah, you love this thing," or "Oh yeah, this that really gets under your skin," or whatever. I'm like, "Wait, what? How you know that?
How do you
You
know that?
sure?"
Because she's the third party observer of every move you make, dude.
She's the first person to know. I'm the
Yeah.
second, and so I think
Dude, I've
that's
been
been
with
really
Jocelyn
interesting.
27 years. Wait till you stack those decades up. And there comes a point where you're like, crap, she knows me better than I know myself. But
Hmm.
this is good. This is good. Then the kids come along and they just wreck you both, right? And then you realize you both were starting from zero again because you didn't know anything. It's fun times, man.
I'm
Dude,
looking forward
Chandler
to that.
Bolt, man, I love you, dude. Your energy has always been, I just love your energy, man. I love what you have built. And for any of the men listening out there, man, tell them how they can get in touch with you, what you're working on now, or where you want to send them after the show.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'd say two things. I mean, we're building out the media company. So there's two brands. There's the Chandler Bolt brand and then the selfpublishing.com brand. So either one is, you can find us on YouTube, Instagram. I just created my first ever Instagram. So that's a new thing. You can follow me on Instagram. But I'm talking about scaling stuff on the Chandler Bolt side of things, book publishing on the selfpublishing.com side of things, obviously. And then if you want to chat with our team, go to selfpublishing.com/apply. You can book a call with the team. If you got a book idea or a book that you're wanting to write, we can help kind of map that out and help you
Yeah,
make it
man.
happen.
Highly recommended. And I have a saying that I think that every man should have a podcast, whether or not anyone listens, and that everyone should self-publish a book, whether
Mm.
anyone ever reads it, because you will grow and you will learn about yourself, and that will be enough. And you'll probably make a difference as people pick it up along their way. Chandler Bolt, man, thanks for being on the show, bro.
Thank you, Shane.
All right, men. That wraps up my interview with Chandler Bolt. Man, what a great guy. Just an infectious guy. So much energy, has done some amazing things. And he really is just a good dude, man. If you ever want to write a book, you should go to selfpublishing.com. I mean, Chandler does amazing work. Literally help people publish thousands of books. And I meant what I said. I think that every man should have a podcast, even if nobody listens, and every man should write their life story into a book up to the point you're writing it to, because the process of talking like this, and even if you're just solo on your podcast, the process of writing a book, I'll say it's the hardest thing I've ever done, and also the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And it made not only a difference in our bottom line and a difference in our credibility and our business and our brand, but it also gave me permission to close a chapter of my life and be proud of it, and to know that it was recorded so someday my grandkids could see what we did. But then also the freedom to be able to go do something else. It goes back to that, what we were talking about, Chandler, about grief. You got to let go of those old identities. It's what's keeping you stuck. The identities of what people are going to think about you if you change, if you evolve, if you grow. The agreement to stay stuck, to hang on to an identity that you no longer want to be a part of. You don't want to do that. It doesn't mean you burn everything down. It can be the foundation for whatever comes next. But talking through that, processing through that with other great men in space together, physical space and proximity, and then going off to do the work on yourself to make it happen. That's where the real growth is. And that's why we came to this earth, people, so we could learn lessons and we could grow. All right. If you want to learn a few more lessons, you want to grow alongside me, make sure that as you listen to this podcast, make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you go leave us a 5-star review so other men can find out about the Great Men podcast. If you want to see everything we're doing in the Great Men Project, we've got frameworks, resources, tools, all the information about the live events and the retreats that we're going to be hosting. You can check that out over at greatmen.org. Everything there. And, I love Substack. I've been writing on Substack. I'm releasing 1 or 2 articles a week over there right now. I hang out there personally. No one on my team touches my Substack. So if you want to reach out, you want to connect, you want to talk about that, go to substack.com/@ShaneSams. And you can see all the different things that I'm writing over on Substack. I'll piddle around and play a little bit on Instagram as well. So you can check that out at Shane Sams Creates. Shane Sams Creates. That's my Instagram. So head over to greatmen.org, see everything we're doing. Leave a podcast review as soon as you hang up with this before you forget about it. And check out all of my other content over at Substack. And if you just want to see what I'm doing in the mornings, I usually post that on my Instagram stories. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for this podcast. Great Men with Shane Sams. I'll see you next week. Until then, burn up the scripts, step into the fire, and go build a life of greatness on your own terms. I'll see you then.